As far as the physical aspects concerned, would be at birth. Initially, when I was born, my parents were told because of my premature birth, I would not walk, nor would I talk, or have any semblance of normal life, as it were, as most of us know it. So I guess as far as the cerebral palsy is concerned, that would be at birth. They have always supported me from day one, because one of the greatest things I can tell you about them was they were told I would never walk or talk or do anything or have any normal semblance of life. And the same with my brother, and we had a doctor who we affectionately referred to as Dr. Death at some point. He basically told my parents, they won't survive the night, go ahead and shut off the machines, they're not going to have a normal life. And my parents said, absolutely not. And both my brother and I are here today. We both have children of our own, we both work, we both have families. So we've defied the odds, as it were, because of the love and support of my parents, and never letting our disabilities get in the way of doing anything we ever dreamed possible. Being able to be married, and I love my wife and I love my son, and I will admit, initially when I found out I was having a son and he was born, I did have some, I guess you could call it, trepidation or a bit of fear, because I was worried that he might be dyslexic, and he may still be, and if in fact he is diagnosed with that, I'll be there to help him, every step of the way and still love him. But as a father going into that was a bit of a concern for me, knowing my own history. The advice I could give most of all is be comfortable in your own skin. And that's a very loaded statement in a way for many of us that deal with a disability, whether it be social, physical, mental, regardless of what it is being comfortable with who you are and knowing who you are, and being able to go to somebody and explain the issues you might have that might affect you on a day-to-day basis. And once you can do that, and once you can be comfortable in your own skin, I think you can have success in whatever arena you so choose.
My name is Tracy Williams. I graduated from Dominican University in January ceremony of 2010. I would say the first time I realized was when I was about preschool age, and I was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at about 5 years old. So I knew I've known what it was since I was 5. Well, I would say my college degree, since people in my old life were not really always supportive, and I would say public speaking, freelance writing, and being asked to have some of my disability advocacy research presented at the Chicago Food and Nutrition Expo at McCormick Place with the professional organization Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Here at Dominican, I was kind of what you call a foodie even before I took the career assessment in my high school. I just thought that dietitian would be the best healthcare field choice that I could go into based on my limitations, but also trying to push past them. And I like to do freelance writing and public speaking just so that I can be a positive influence on my audience and inspire them to eat a healthier diet and live a healthier lifestyle.
So hello, my name is Victoria Farini. I have what's called juvenile onset glaucoma. I developed it when I was 6 years old. So it first started when things would fall on the floor and I couldn't find them. I would bump into things, and my mother just thought, I think she needs glasses. So with my glasses. I still continued to bump into things, and things would fall on the floor, and I could not find them. And a couple of months later, my mom said, I think we need to take you to see a specialist. So I went to the University of Illinois, the eye and ear and nose, throat, I believe it's called infirmary, where I saw a glaucoma specialist, an ophthalmologist. And she did confirm. She confirmed that I did have glaucoma in my left eye. I was immediately admitted into the hospital to perform surgery. Unfortunately, at that point, though, it had progressed super quickly, and I had lost the vision in my left eye and developed the glaucoma in my right eye. I've been battling glaucoma back and forth with multiple surgeries and a cataract. Although when I was younger, I was considered legally blind. I wore the very thick Coca-Cola Steve Urkel glasses, if anyone remembers that from Family Matters. So I was still pretty much able to read regular print and walk around independently. But because I had so many surgeries, and again, glaucoma is an eye disease that normally happens to people when they're about 40 years old, and I was 6. When I graduated from Oak Park River Forest High School back in '92, and I came here to Dominican, again, at the time it was Rosary. Again, it was a little bit challenging, only because I want to say that I was the only student here that was visually impaired. So by me being here at Rosary, now Dominican, and again, also the only student with a visual disability, really wasn't quite sure how to handle it. Believe it or not, I actually did have 1 or 2 professors that did not feel comfortable having me in their class because, as they flat out told me, I never taught someone who was visually impaired and not really sure how to do it. That was very intimidating and was very hurtful. But again, I was a very strong-willed, stubborn person who was very independent and wanted to make sure that, hey, if my mom is paying all this money for tuition for me to attend this institution, I'm going to make sure that I get what I need. So I was very, very lucky to work with the Dean of Students office, and we helped each other. They were able to get me some of the accommodations that I need, such as a note taker. But as well, I also advocated for myself. I always made sure that even when I came back to get my 2 master's degrees from Dominican, I always asked who my teachers were ahead of time. So I was able to call them or email them to introduce myself and let them know that, hey, this is who I am, this is my disability, this is what I need. Do you have any questions? Do I think Dominican has done a great job with their students with disability over the years? I absolutely do. I have seen this program grow immensely since I was here as an undergrad. I was the last class of Rosary College in '97, and I came back to get my first master's degree in 2001 for the social work program, and then I segued over into the MBA program in 2004 and graduated in 2008. My saying that I say to everyone, speak up and speak out. Learn how to become an advocate for yourself. Learn yourself, know what your disability is, know what your limitations are, know what your assets are, because you are your best asset. And use that to your advantage. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something. You go as far as you want to go to achieve your dreams, and you don't let anybody stand in your way of doing that.
My name is Sorrel Volpe. I'm 29 years old. I'm an alum here at Dominican University. By trade, I'm a museum educator, and in my free time, I run a very, very small nonprofit called Frillability Incorporated. It's all about disability advocacy and adaptive living. Well, some of that has to do with my parents, because when you're a young child, you just think that whatever your experience is normal. But I was born with this, and my mother noticed that there was something wrong when I was a baby. I have a condition called Klippel-Trenaunay syndrome. It's characterized by the PIK3CA gene mutation, which is in the overgrowth spectrum. And other things that share that mutation is like ovarian cancer. Although what I have is not cancer, it has some similarities. So when my body was forming, when cells were deciding what they wanted to be, my vascular and lymphatic cells went, oh no! And instead of forming normal tissue, they formed malformed tissue, so they're like tumors, and I have them mostly in my right leg from here to here, but there are some in other places, and it affects more than just my right leg. It has whole body effects. I can walk, I'm not paralyzed, but just not a lot, so I use various mobility devices. Most of my childhood, all of my childhood, and a little bit into my young adulthood, I was able to live mostly normally. Things, I remember always being in pain, but I thought that it was just kind of like the normal human experience until I started getting worse, and I was having a harder time walking. When I was 17 years old, a senior in high school, some other symptoms were presenting, and found out that I had a seizure disorder, which I now know is really linked more to being autistic, but that's also when I went on my first pain medication, which was just Celebrex. It's an NSAID, a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. By the time I was 19/20 years old, somewhere in between, is when I started using a cane. And then by the time I was 25 is when I had my first wheelchair. Like, if there's advice that I didn't give to any disabled person, is to, celebrate being able to shower in the morning. And I think, some days that's my biggest accomplishment. Of course, I'm happy that I was able to achieve a bachelor's degree and get a little bit into the workforce and incorporate a business. Like, that's all really cool. And it's, difficult not to compare yourself to able individuals who are able to do things at a different pace, but ultimately, you need to keep reminding yourself to only compare yourself to past versions of yourself and build from there.
My name's Gina Barron. I'm a second-year student here at Dominican University. I'm studying in education and Spanish. The first time I learned about my disability, the doctors knew before I was even born that I had a differing ability, and there was a lot of unknown expectation going forth from the time that I was born, but it's something that has, in varying forms, followed me my whole life. And I didn't really come to terms with it until about, I want to say, the 4th grade, when I really started to acknowledge the different things that would come with having this disability. So I think after that point, I always knew that there was something a little bit different, but I still tried to not let it isolate me from my peers who may or may not have had the more visible differing ability. And I struggled with it for a while, but I came to find people who are very accepting and didn't necessarily divide me out. They didn't make me feel like I was any different. I think the advice I would give to anyone who's struggling with any sort of differing ability is, don't get fixated on the fact that you have something that's different. Don't try and make it a negative, because if you allow yourself to accept it as something negative, then it has that power over you to make you feel less than.